Yes, it's a confident title, but let me explain. If you want to be a polyglot, start by learning toki pona. If you listen to any polyglot speaking on the subject of language learning, one of the most common things you'll hear is that they started out as somebody convinced that they were bad at learning languages. This is in fact almost universal. And then they learned that there is a great variety of different ways in which they could learn languages that made it fun. By my experience, toki pona is very good at taking people from this initial stage, thinking that they're bad at learning languages, to the second stage, which is having knowledge of the different methods that can help them learn a language. So my experience with trying to learn toki pona, I think, illustrates this very well. So I started off years ago. I liked the idea of toki pona. This was before the official toki pona book was published, so I downloaded the grammar notes and I read them end to end. And I can confidently say that I learned absolutely nothing from that. But I didn't know any better. I did not know how language learning works, so I imitated what schools do. What schools infamously make you do that is very bad at teaching languages. I read grammar. It didn't work. I had lost interest and I did not think about it for several months. After that, I went back to it. This time, I went through the notes again and I completed every exercise in the notes. This was slightly better, but this also did not help. At the end of this process, I still could not speak any toki pona. And again, without having invested too much time, I abandoned it and I went about my life for a few months. The third time, I used a Memrise course. And within a week, I had learned the entire vocabulary. I was still bad with the grammar, but I had actually found a method that worked for me. I had actually made progress for the first time. Then I moved on to a second Memrise course that contained example sentences that showed how the grammar worked. Once I had that learned, I was able to go back to the grammar notes and use that to refine the understanding that I already had. So I had now found a method that actually helped me learn. And at this point, I was able to start practicing writing things in toki pona myself. And what I found was that even more so than the flashcard app, producing the language made it stick. And this is when I had my first eureka moments about how to communicate with it. Some other things I tried after then: reading toki pona on social media written by other people, writing and translating my own, listening to recordings of other people speaking toki pona. Then I went on to make the Semi-Licene YouTube channel, which kept me regularly practicing writing and speaking toki pona. The key thing about this here is that because toki pona is such a simple, miniaturized language, I was able to go through this trial and error process very quickly. Each of these steps, if I was attempting to learn Spanish or Japanese, could have taken months or years and taken a whole lot of energy, enough to make me conclude that I was inherently bad. In fact, not even to make me conclude, but to reinforce my existing belief that I was bad at languages. But because it was toki pona, the simple language, when I attempted it once and failed, I thought to myself, there's no way that I am so bad at languages I cannot learn 130 words. It must be how I'm going about it. Now that I have successfully learned toki pona to some level of proficiency, I not only know that progress can be slow and incremental, I also know that it takes regular effort. You cannot cram to reach fluency. You can cram to memorize things at the time, but the ability to speak and understand it takes regular practice. The most important thing I learned, though, is what the end goal is like. So I now know what it's like to start at absolute zero and work your way up to being able to have conversations. And that is a very motivating thing. Now, using the knowledge I've gained that producing and speaking a language is the most ideal way for me to become comfortable with it, I can now carry that on into learning more complex languages. This is not an original quote of mine. Many people have said this before. But when you teach music to children, you start them on a simple musical instrument. Once they've understood the basics of music from learning that, they can move up to a complex instrument later. And toki pona serves the same purpose. Once you have the understanding of how you learn languages and how other languages function differently to your native language, you can learn more complex languages a lot more efficiently. Yan aleo tawa pona.